Welcome back to the Holosky Podcast. We're your hosts, Steven.
And Kyle.
And today we're going to do something a little more kind of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Less serious, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I stumbled across a CIA file, and then it tied a whole bunch of stuff together. And after the Bledsoe saga, that was kind of heavy. So I figured we're going to do this. We're going to have some fun. But first, we got to get through the business. So check us out at all our social medias, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. Just search up Holosky Podcast. Come and hang out with us. Just be part of this wonderful community we're putting together. If you have a paranormal encounter you'd like for us to feature on a future show, Kyle's going to tell you how to do it.
You can call the holophone and leave a voicemail, or you can text it. You can send emails to us. You can record yourself and send that through the email. The email is going to be holoskypodcast@gmail.com. Once again, I have not memorized the holophone, but it's going to be in the show notes. So click the show notes and it'll direct you in the right way.
Easy peasy. If you'd like to support the show, there's tons of ways to do it. We have a shop where you can go and check out some t-shirts. We have a Patreon. You could look up tiers, sign up there. We have a Venmo if you'd like to throw some change in our Monster account. That'd be dope. The best way you could support us is telling a friend, just kind of putting our name out there. We want to grow our listener base as much as possible. So you guys help that out a lot. So the more you put the word out, share the show, share the episodes, the better it is. You can also leave us a 5-star rating and review on whatever platform you listen to. And if I find them, I will gladly shout you out on a future show. Today's 5-star rating and review comes to us from Tashare Martok. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but it says, "Hollow yes. Love what you guys are doing. Always interesting. Anyone else take a drink whenever you hear the word dope?"
You're going to be trash.
First one's on me. This was dope. Thank you so much for taking the time to leave that 5-star rating and review. It helps kind of get our show out there and push it up through the rest of the paranormal podcasts and make it easier to be found.
Yeah, we've also had some really great 1-star reviews here lately, so thank you for that.
Here we go.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you. That's all I'm going to say. Is I appreciate you. You make me chuckle.
See, those 1-star reviews, like we could get 500 5-star reviews, and if we get a 1-star review, it takes that rating down. So anybody listening and haven't left us a review yet, you can go and pop a 5-star and help us get that back up there.
You can.
Yeah. But anyway, any support, we are grateful.
Yeah.
And we love you all.
Love it. We love it. We haven't really officially talked about it, but we do have a convention coming up in March.
Oh, yeah.
March 18th through the 20th in, where's that at again?
I think
Missouri.
It's in Independence.
No, not Missouri.
Independence, Missouri. Yeah.
Is it Missouri?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right outside of Kansas City.
Yeah, that's what I meant. It's okay. I just clicked on that. It's the KC Spirit and Paranormal Convention. And they somehow roped us into having an hour panel that we're going to be talking at. So it's going to get real pretty fast.
Yeah, it's our first live appearance anywhere.
Yeah.
And we are gonna wing it.
It's what we do best. It's what we do best. You know, there's just nothing more to be said about it. I'm sure it's going to be a great time because it's a world that me and Steve don't usually delve into very much. So
the spiritual side of things.
Yeah.
I'm super excited because I'm all about learning about this stuff.
Yeah.
The more I can soak in that weekend, the better. Us talking is just kind of like a footnote to me trying to consume as much knowledge and information as I can that weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be cool.
In March. So if anybody's around the area or wants to make a trek, come and hang out with us. We'll be there all weekend, just chilling. We'll probably have some stickers and stuff.
Yeah.
So come and hang out with us. It'll be a cool time.
For show.
You can listen to us talk for an hour as if you don't get enough of us.
Right, yeah.
Through this thing.
Yeah. And then throwing it out there, We did just do a swap cast with one of our buddies. His podcast is called The Subconscious Realm. If you want to, go check him out.
Yeah, General Lee.
Yeah, check him out.
Excellent dude.
Yeah, it was awesome. He's from across the pond, as Steve likes to say.
Great host. It was just like talking to a buddy.
It was fun. We had a blast. So go check him out and give him a listen.
For sure. On to our paranormal encounter of the day, week, if you will. This is from our friend Kelly. She says, "Hi, here's what I posted in the Urban Legends group about a week ago. I feel like it wasn't seen enough due to algorithms, and I feel like someone out there must have some answers or idea as to what it is. Kind regards, Kelly." So I'm going to read her post, and if anybody has any ideas, send them to us, and we will get them out there, and we will figure everything out.
I've got it figured out.
Kyle's already solved it. Never mind.
I haven't even read it yet.
Okay, it says, does anybody have any idea at all? Okay, I wonder if anyone can help me. Since I was about 8 years old, I have heard a ticking sound around me. I'm now 45. This ticking has followed me to every house I've ever lived in, even followed me from New Zealand to London. It can start very quiet and become quite loud, and it can be slow or speed up really fast. Sometimes I don't hear it for a year. I never know when it will turn up, and it might stick around for several weeks. It has no predictability. For years, I tried to get other people to hear it, but whenever I went to get someone, it would disappear. Finally, when I was 25, I heard and went to grab my boyfriend, and he finally heard it too. We followed it from room to room. Yes, it also moves. Then a couple of years later, in London, a different friend also heard it. He's a big skeptic, but could not give a logical explanation for it. A few years later, I was back in New Zealand, and I was hearing the ticking and other stuff that bothers me, but this particular night, I was getting really scared. I asked my mom if she could come and sleep with me, and finally she heard it, while laying there listening to it move around, get faster and slower, louder and quiet. Now, my son has always known about this ticking, but he never believed me. When he was 16, we were having a lot of issues in the house we were living in, the ticking among them. It was in my bedroom one day, and I was in my bedroom one day and just called out to my son that it was here, and he came running into my room and finally heard it. We followed it out of my bedroom into the hallway, and it disappeared into a big frame photo of my son. My son was absolutely floored. The ticking does not scare me, although it has in the past, but generally I feel comforted by it. When it turns up, I feel like I'm not so alone. I haven't heard it for a while this time, and I'm often anxiously awaiting its return. Anybody have any ideas?
I don't have any ideas.
I have not.
Logically. It reminds me of a podcast I listened to, kind of.
Yeah.
But it was a story one, and I mean, it's not fun to say, but it was the ticker was real. It was just counting down to the person's expiration.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's not cool. But in this case, she describes it like she's following it around like it's its own entity. Like the entity that is, it's audible. Like when it shows up, there's audible markers.
Yeah.
Right? Because she's like, we followed it and disappeared in the picture of my son.
Yeah.
It's like, so they're able to follow the sound.
Yeah. It's not all encompassing. It's
right.
Focused almost. Yeah. Are there like auditory poltergeist? I'm sure there are.
Yeah, why wouldn't there be?
You hear people talking, but I'm curious as to what other kind of issues and occurrences you are having that you kind of like dance around a little bit in your post. So if
is that in reference to like when she was saying, because it caught me off guard when she was like, I heard the ticking noise and didn't she say like and all the other things that bother me? But she kind of like swept that under the rug, and
like she wasn't touching on that.
Yeah, when you read that, I didn't want to, but I had that thought like, well, we need to know what this other stuff is.
See if it ties in together.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm curious as to whether or not these other things always happen when the ticking happens, or if they're separate and just happen at the same time. Or because if all these things are tied together, it could just be some sort of poltergeist activity that has either attached itself to you or, I mean, if it's moved around, that's where it's at. And, yeah, I don't know. If any listeners out there have any kind of take on it, please feel free to reach out to us.
It almost makes me think like the fact that it's moving around, and this is just me. Like this is me shooting in the dark here.
That's what we do, bud.
Right. Like it makes me think. Okay, it's following you around. So what if, per se, it's tied to an object, not her? Okay.
Like she moves the object with her.
What if, because I don't know your layout, I don't know anything about you, but what if she has an heirloom old school clock that has a ticker? Like you can audibly hear it going tick, tick,
yeah.
tick, tick, tick. And if the spirit is tied to that clock, what if it like borderline imitates what it's tied to? And like I said, sticking one out in the dark there, but I mean, it kind of works in my brain.
Yeah. I see. Yeah. Man, I don't know.
I don't either.
I'm looking up like.
We don't know the rhythm of the ticking either. Is it like a second tick or is it just?
Well, she said it speeds up and it slows down.
Okay, there you go. So yeah, there you go.
So I'm trying to look up things like auditory poltergeists and such, and I just pulled this up.
You would think that it would be a thing.
Yeah. I mean, it is essentially like ghosts make noises, rattling the chains and knocking on doors and stuff like that. But just to be a ticking, I'm on Art Museum of Toronto talking about a noise ghost, which is an Inuit poltergeist, an Arctic auditory phenomenon of incorporeal guile. This unseen, unbodied noise ghost may announce his haunting visitation by curling around a northern house on a cold night and emitting a small, high-pitched hissing sound.
That's interesting.
The noise ghost circles the igloo, and always the constrictor wraps the fragile ice in singing folds of death. The hiss serrates and skitters about the room, swooping on the face of a terrified child. Wow, that gets
pretty dark.
Yeah.
That's not, that's
interesting.
But
there are auditory ghosts.
Yeah, like I guess I just never have.
I always take it in context with like a visual ghost.
Yes,
you know
absolutely.
what I mean? Never just a noise, but there are.
Yeah.
I mean, there's auditory hallucinations. There's all kinds of different things. But this being heard by multiple people in different occurrences and occasions, kind of has its own.
Like it totally makes sense that. I think you're right. I think that when we think of ghosts, we think of an apparition. We think of the lady in white. We think of shadow people, and you know it is kind of like foolish on our parts that, well, maybe this particular entity doesn't have the ability or the energy or what have you to manifest visually. It has the ability to manifest audibly.
Yeah. Or like you said, if it's
totally makes sense.
If it's tied to an antique piece, maybe it's something that meant, like say the ticking of a clock, for example. It was something that meant so much to them when they were on this plane that they're just still trying to convey it now that they're on the next.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know. It's weird.
It is
weird.
It's still like, even though we sit here and explain it, like, it's, you know, instead of visually seeing said ghost, you are audibly hearing the ghost. It still is hard for my brain to take in for some reason.
Yeah, it makes you think about like all those times you think you hear something.
Yeah.
But you don't.
Yeah.
Or I mean, you do.
Right.
But you question it and you write it off. You're like,
it's nothing.
We said that exactly.
I know, that's weird.
That is weird. Yeah, but if anybody has any idea, feel free to email us and we'll try to get it back to Kelly. If anybody has any idea, like she said, she just wanted to get it out on as many ears as possible because she's curious as to what everybody thinks about it. So yes, thank you, Kelly, for taking the time to share that with us. Hopefully we get it out on some more ears than the old Facebook did, and we'll see where it goes. If you have a paranormal encounter or something weird you'd like us to share on a future show, email it to us. You know the drill. check it out and go. So, today's episode, I got a little backstory for it.
Okay.
Weekly World News. Everybody know what that is? It is
The dopest.
The absolute weirdest publication out there. It's not out there anymore, but it was out there. And when I was young, when I was a little kid, that's all I wanted to read. From like the time I could read to probably the time I got into high school, I was all about Weekly World News. Like I needed to know if Bat Boy was pregnant. Like I needed to know.
That's awesome.
I needed to know if Bigfoot and Santa Claus were conspiring together to overtake the Nazis that lived in the middle of the earth.
That is A, awesome, and B, explains a lot.
Yeah, we haven't touched on this very much. Like it was so bad that I would get these in my stocking for Christmas.
That's awesome.
And my grandma used to call them gossip magazines. In my brain, I heard gospel magazines. So I would refer to them as this. I'd always want a gospel magazine. I'd always want to see what
Nice.
Bigfoot was doing, the UFOs were doing. So, I mean, in turn, it was kind of a fitting.
When you were saying that, like my brain was like, I hope that internally he was, his grandma was saying gossip, but I was hoping you would be like, but my brain was saying disclosure.
Well, if everybody remembers the iconic scene in Men in Black, where they're going to see what's going on in the world, and he pops it up, and he's like, right here, if you want to know the real news, it's this right here. And in that vein, I have got some interesting things I put together here with a specific article.
So you're saying that you're Will Smith?
Yes, can't you tell?
Obviously.
But I'm going to take the time
so that means that I'm K.
Yeah. Kyle.
Weird.
It's synchronicities, dog. Steve. So I'm going to read the article directly from Weekly World News. And if anybody else is interested, they have the entire catalog archived. It's beautiful.
I hope that some of the listeners can find real life paper versions of this and send them to us so we can frame them.
I would have kept them. I probably had every one from like 1992.
They'd probably worth like $3.
1998.
They'd probably be worth like $3.
They have. I actually looked it up. They have posters on Amazon you can buy.
Oh, that's cool.
But they're not the OG.
Yeah, I would like to get the paper and then frame it and then hang it up.
I know a lot of people have heard of this story, but I'm just going to go through. I'm going to read you the Weekly World News article, and then we're going to go from there.
All right, let's do this.
Russians shoot down UFO. This is from, I believe it's in, September 8th, 1992. This is the one that is in if you go to the archives. Russians shoot down UFO. It's by Nick Mann, a special correspondent. From Washington, Soviet troops shot down a low-flying UFO in Siberia in 1987, but the space alien survivors got their revenge by turning 23 Russian soldiers into stone. That's the word from CIA sources who have access to dozens of Soviet spy files that have surfaced in the United States since former Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev dismantled their country's super-secret KGB intelligence agency after the collapse of communism in 1991. The UFO file reportedly contains 250 pages of eyewitness testimony from two soldiers who mysteriously survived the extraterrestrial attack. A dramatic photo from the crash site with sketches of the space aliens themselves round out the report, which one CIA source called the most chilling portrait of extraterrestrial revenge on record. That was a quote. Quote, this single file has done more to open our eyes to alien intentions than aliens might... This single file has done more to open our eyes to alien intentions and alien might than anything else in the history of UFOs, said one of the two CIA insiders who leaked portions of the secret KGB file to trusted reporters in Washington. UFOs are spotted, space aliens are encountered, but never once have we heard about extraterrestrials attacking and killing human beings. He continued. If the KGB report is accurate, this is a terrifying development indeed. It proves that space aliens aren't the benign, benevolent beings that so many of us like to think they are. They possess weapons and technologies that are superior to anything we have on Earth. And this incident shows that when pushed into a corner, extraterrestrials will use everything at their disposal to protect themselves. According to the KGB file, Soviet soldiers on routine maneuvers spotted the saucer-shaped starship flying at a low altitude at 8:35 a.m. on October 13th, 1987. For reasons that remain unclear, soldiers disabled the UFO with shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles, causing it to crash approximately 25 yards east of the patrol's position. The UFO slammed into the ground with an impact that literally cracked open its hull. And even though the troops kept their distance and they were reportedly taken off guard when 5 tiny humanoids with, quote, large heads and large black eyes and segmented snouts emerged from the wreckage. The unnamed soldiers who survived the alien attack said the creatures trotted clear of the wreckage, huddled briefly, and then merged into a single ball-shaped entity, the CIA source said. It's hard to grasp what occurred next, but the soldiers said the entities began to squeal and hum before it turned bright white. A split second later, the ball doubled in size and exploded in what the witnesses describe as a blinding burst of splintered light. Soviet investigators were never able to determine the why or how of it, but when the incident was over, the space aliens were gone, and 23 Russian soldiers had turned to stone. And the 2 survivors were left scratching their heads, wondering why the explosion of light had absolutely no effect on them. The KGB report went on to say that the UFO wreckage and the stone soldiers were taken to a research facility near Moscow for study. Analysis of the UFO report, which had no controls or apparent source of propulsion, remains incomplete, but Soviet experts concluded an unknown energy source altered the structure of the soldiers' flesh, turning them into a substance that is molecularly indistinguishable from limestone. We are currently trying to gain access to the remains of the starship, he added, but there were no guarantees the Russians will even admit that they have it, much less give it a look. So, that is our weekly world news article.
So, the beings basically predatored the Soviets.
I'm going to say intergalactic Medusa'd.
Yeah, but like at the end of Predator, Schwarzenegger beats them, and he's like, "Oh yeah," and then Predator self-destructs. And that's that's essentially what they did there.
Yeah. They're like, you did.
Yeah, but it is curious. Like, you take in the location of the area, and then you can run that back to Medusa, and then I think we talked about it in Discord. I cannot remember the name. I think Rabantha brought it up. One of them brought it up. I'm sorry if I forgot your name. But they talked about the Chinese army or Japanese army. There's 10,000.
Oh, the terracotta
yes,
soldiers?
That's it.
So it makes you... Okay, I got a bunch... I'm going a bunch of different routes here. It does make you wonder about like encounters in mythology.
And that picture that... You got to explain that. That looks like a fighter pilot with dinner rolls for a nose.
Yeah. This is it's captioned. This crude sketch of one of the snout-nosed aliens was part of the KGB file on the 1987 UFO incidents. Notations indicate that it was drawn by one of the soldiers who survived when his buddies were turned to stone by the creatures.
Bro, when you scroll that up,
it looks like Squidward.
No, it looks like Jigsaw with Squidward's nose.
If Jigsaw and Squidward had a love child that was a fighter pilot that I drew, it would be this.
I mean, that's a pretty fucking good description.
That's where it is.
I totally see it.
I'll share this. I'll try to screenshot it.
It is really a weird picture. And I like how I don't know. It was just drawn perfectly.
It is. But going back to this, all of these stories in mythology, like Medusa, for example, of people getting turned to stone.
Makes you wonder. Makes you wonder.
Is there some fire behind the smoke?
Especially limestone of stones.
And like what's the story in the Bible, Sodom and Gomorrah, where they turned into pillar of salts? They just did kill the whole city and shit. I don't know. I've never read the Bible, but I've heard stories. So it's not that far-fetched to think that something out there has the capability to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, but here's my thing too. I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
Yeah.
But I like in the beginning of that article, it was just like, yo, if we piss off aliens, they're gonna use their might to fuck us up. And like the whole time I'm like, oh, and like the best you could come up with is turning us to stone. Like that's the best you got. Don't get me wrong. It's impressive. But I feel like that's like old world impressive. Like you guys could do a lot better.
I mean,
that's just my personal take on it. And because currently we have a guy that can samurai you, he just needs a sword and he'll cut you up and you're done.
But he can't swing a samurai sword if he's made of stone.
That's a valid point. It's a weird, especially in the context of a self-destruct method.
Unless it had nothing to do with them even attacking. Maybe that was their form of escape. Maybe they didn't self-destruct. Maybe they were escaping, and whatever kind of energy they used turned these people into stone.
Maybe. Yeah, it would be something like that. Thought is beyond me.
Well, yeah.
Because
Same.
like if you're like, yeah, it's the energy that comes off. Like you can't explain that to me. You can't be like, no, but Kyle, it's the this that comes off of this energy, and then they turn. I'm like, no,
maybe it used all the soldiers' consciousness and self to propel, and they just left them these stone husks.
I mean,
out here,
okay,
it used their life force. That's why I didn't kill all of them. It just killed 23.
It only 25. Needed 23.
Yeah.
It didn't need 25. If they would have pulled 25, they would have overshot
their destination.
Yes, there you go.
Another thing that got me was after all this Bledsoe stuff we talked about was them turning into the ball of light.
Yeah, I definitely caught that too.
So that's weird.
It's not a narrative that I like, but
he specifically said that when they go out to explore and check shit out, they do so. And like when the kid, he said the young ones go out to play.
Yeah, for sure. It is interesting to say the least, the fact that because you don't hear about many ET cases involving, you always hear light, which is kind of curious now that you think about it. You know, like bright lights are always associated with ETs. You know, whether it be the tractor beam that just abducts you, you know, whatever you want to
lights in the sky.
Yeah, the craft itself. I just have never, and then I've also never heard of them coming together as one. They create one ball. That's bizarre.
That is weird as well. A single ball-shaped entity.
It's like they were trying to be Captain Planet.
Could be.
And wasn't there 5 of the aliens too?
I don't know.
That's weird.
I don't know.
What if this story influenced Captain Planet?
It could have.
Could have.
How would you like to be the dude that accidentally fired a fucking surface to air missile?
He accidentally did it? I thought he did it on purpose.
For reasons that remain unclear, soldiers disabled the UFO with shoulder fired missiles.
Oh, I just took that as like we're not telling you as to why we shot it.
Could be. It could be.
Because that's a pretty fucking big mistake.
Yeah, he's turned to stone.
He's like, don't worry, I'm just gonna aim at it.
He's turned to fucking stone now.
Steve, I'm just aiming the rocket at the UFO. I'm not gonna pull the
I'm not gonna do what you think I'm gonna do.
And then you hear it go off, and you're like, Kyle,
damn it,
sorry. Yeah, I totally think that what most likely happened is they thought somebody was invading their airspace, and they're like, we're gonna shoot them down. We're not asking for permission. We're just going to shoot them down. This is what we do.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And then, per typical, they're going to go investigate it because that's also what you do. And then for whatever reason, they let them these little beings run around and turn into a giant ball.
Yeah, because if you got one surface to air missile, you're going to have another one. You could have just took them out.
Yeah, for sure. And I guarantee they're all carrying weapons. But then you just let them turn into a ball that was basically a stone nuke, and it got you.
Yeah, it's such a weird story.
And then even more mind-blowing is the fact that 2 of them survived.
Yeah.
They weren't affected by it at all.
What made them any different?
And it would be extremely interesting to know more details. Were those 2 that survived farther away? Like there was a proximity that this could get? Or were they in the mix of guys and just, because that would be even weirder if they were in the mix and just for whatever reason they didn't get tagged with it. That would be way weirder.
I think I saw somebody talking about it. Let me look here. I believe I saw someone talking about it.
Because if I was like the last 2 guys in line and everybody in front of me got zapped, I would assume that I was just far enough away that we'll just say blast radius didn't get me.
You're just good.
Yeah.
Or maybe they hid. I don't know.
That's another valid point.
I don't know. I had a whole thing pulled up, but I lost it. Anyway, we're just going to roll with this. So this whole thing is right at home in Weekly World News, right?
Yeah.
Right at home with the Bigfoot got me pregnant and
love it.
I've been training the Loch Ness Monster for the last 15 years.
That would be cool.
Stuff like that. Right at home with it. Just leave it as it is and it's fine.
Yeah.
Until the CIA declassifieds come out in their declassification.
Yeah.
There is a file in the CIA declassified that was declassified in 2009 talking about this exact happening.
When was this article released?
In 92.
Even weirder, the fact that in the article it says the CIA is the one that leaked the story.
It's weird. So I'll just read you the meat of this. It says it is a reprint from the newspaper. I can't pronounce it because it's in Russian. Cosmic Revenge. The first paragraph is...
Oh, shit. So they directly reference the paper? This paper?
No. Legitimate Russian newspapers who published the story. There were 2 newspapers that published the story that this happened. And
now we need those papers.
Somebody did the research. I can't remember who. I can't cite them, but I apologize.
Listeners, find those papers.
They looked it up, and they are legitimate news sources in Russia. Still functioning newspaper. This would be like if the Washington Post posted this.
Right. I want the original of that paper.
This is the first. This is from there. It says, after Mikhail Gorbachev dissolved in 1991, the KGB Top Secret Intelligence Administration, a lot of material from that department found their way abroad, in particular to the CIA. As reported by the authoritative magazine Canadian Weekly World News, the U.S. intelligence obtained a 250-page file on the attack by a UFO on a military unit in Siberia. The file contains not only many documentary photographs and drawings, but also testimonies by actual participants in the events. One of the CIA representatives referred to this case as a horrific picture of revenge on the part of extraterrestrial creatures, a picture that would make one's blood freeze. According to the KGB materials, a quite low-flying spaceship in the shape of a saucer appeared above a military unit that had been conducting routine training maneuvers. For unknown reasons, somebody unexpectedly launched a surface-to-air missile and hit the UFO. It fell to the earth not far away, and 5 short humanoids with large heads and black eyes emerged from it. It is stated that the testimonies by the 2 soldiers who remained alive that after freeing themselves from the debris, the aliens came close together and then, quote, merged into a single object that acquired a physical or a spherical shape. That object began to buzz and hiss sharply and then became brilliantly white. In a few seconds, the spheres grew much bigger and exploded by flaring up with an extremely bright light. At that very instant, 23 soldiers who had watched the phenomenon turned into, quote, stone poles. Only 2 soldiers who stood in the shade were less exposed to the luminous explosion survived. The KGB report goes on to say that the remains of the UFO and the petrified soldiers were transferred to a secret scientific research institution near Moscow. Specialists assume that a source of energy that is still unknown to Earthlings instantly changed the structure of the soldiers' living organisms, having transformed it into a substance whose molecular composition is no different than that of limestone. A CIA representative stated, if the KGB file corresponds to reality, this is an extremely menacing case. The aliens possess such a weapon and technology that go beyond all of our assumptions. They can stand up for themselves if attacked. End. I got it.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to let you go.
Yeah, I got some.
Yeah, let's talk about it here.
So at the very extreme least, because in that CIA document, it almost like is verbatim what that article said. Like they're like almost literal, verbatim
because
things there.
They took that what I read from the CIA was pulled from the Russian newspaper.
Gotcha.
Which I'm assuming is where the Weekly World News also pulled it from.
Gotcha.
Because at this point, when the Weekly World News came out in '92, nobody knew this CIA file existed because it hadn't been disclosed yet.
Yeah.
So it's like they both pulled from the same source.
But I see that's where it's going to get choppy, because in the Weekly World News, it said that a CIA agent basically leaked to the paper the story, when in all reality it was probably the Russian paper came out, Weekly World News grabbed it from there. Like CIA was not the middleman at the time, right?
Unless
the CIA had the paper, and then the CIA
the CIA went to the Weekly World News.
Has anybody pulled any type of imagery or the paper itself from the Russians?
I do not know right offhand.
Because if they haven't, at the very least, this proves that the CIA was using news outlets for disinformation.
Yeah, that is one avenue.
Right.
100%. I'm trying to figure out. Okay, the document which can be found on... Okay, this is from the sun.uk, or the sun.co.uk. The document which can be found on the official CIA website is a translation of a report from Ukrainian newspaper. So there was a Russian newspaper and a Ukrainian newspaper.
Huh.
And, man, I don't know.
It's so weird, like, because it just... Now the story is expanding. It went from Russia to Ukraine.
Yeah.
So, in one way or the other, the CIA was the middleman and most likely got it to.
Which makes me question this. Okay, let's say, all right. So, let's say this was released by the KGB, because we're still in the Cold War-ish, right, in 92?
Yeah.
Well, it said it came out in 87.
Right.
So let's say the Soviets release this over-the-top fucking story to these 2 established newspapers. It's verbatim saying that the CIA knows about this.
Right.
So it could be some kind of like weird smear campaign that the CIA is in the know and they're not coming clean to the American people.
Yeah, it's possible.
And it's just kind of something to make them look bad.
For sure. Yeah.
Because if the CIA has information that aliens can just turn whole populations into stone and shit, and
that's a problem.
They're just ignoring it, then that makes the CIA look bad. But on the flip side of that, it's such an off the wall fucking story.
The CIA looks into it.
Well, could be. But why even fucking post this? Why even put this in a CIA file? If there's nothing to it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the CIA officially looked into it. That's weird.
Yeah.
Because one would think the CIA would be above slander. Like if the Russians were just out there talking shit.
Yeah, they just be
the CIA is like, you're dumb.
Yeah, it's not even like they had to get the majority of the American people on the side of the Americans in the Cold War. Like they didn't have to make the Soviet Union look bad because nobody wanted any part with it anyway.
And then like I realize they're still human, but the CIA, like, they are in the know constantly.
Yeah.
So these little like smoke and mirror tactics that a country could try to pull, you would think the CIA would be like, "Hey, nice try. We're not dumb."
Or they could just be like, "No, this didn't happen.
Yeah,
this is Russian bullshit.
Right. Yeah.
This is Soviet bullshit. This is like, stop. Like, just stop." And the American people have been like, "Yeah, they're over there. They're pretty crazy."
But at the time, it's still such an outlandish story. The CIA wouldn't even have to respond.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Because they're like, "Oh my geez."
They're like, "No,
this is dumb."
No, but
yeah, we're not. But they actually ran a file on it. Which means they looked into it at the very least, because there was probably a little bit of meat to it.
And then they classified it.
Yeah.
Which makes it that much worse.
That's actually a way better point, the fact that they did classify it.
Yeah, and it's almost 20, I think when 2009 would have almost been 25 years, which is, they didn't even like okay it to be declassified. It's like their statute of limitation declassification.
It ran out. Yeah.
Like they're not like, "Yeah, that was crazy. We'll declassify it in 2 years and nobody's going to pay attention to it." It just ran out on its own. They're like, "Oh, we're just going to keep this tucked back here."
Shit, we forgot.
Yeah, or we're going to leave it here until, the Soviet Union's gone now. Nobody's fucking worried about it.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
So
it's just weird. And it is, like, to be 100% fair, like when you actually listen to that story, especially from the CIA standpoint, when they're like, yeah, they use this technology that changed the molecular structure of a human.
Feels different.
Well, not only that, but it also, like, it feels sci-fi. It feels overplayed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But the CIA is the ones that wrote that, because it wasn't from the paper. It was from the CIA that wrote that section where it changed the genetic material, whatever, molecular structure of a human to stone, that of limestone. Like, if that was just floating around out there, that, to me, it almost feels too sci-fi-y, personally.
Yeah.
Out of a movie. But the fact that it got, like you said, it got that classification mark, that
that
makes it different.
If you read it from the Weekly World News, like, it's red flag galore. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it sounds 100%. Made up as shit.
Yeah.
But the bigger mystery is, why in the fuck did the CIA hold a translation of a Ukrainian newspaper in their classified files?
Yeah.
On, like, the report on file, period.
Right.
The only thing, like, on one hand, like I said, maybe they were trying to, like, cover their bases, since the KGB were like, "Oh, the CIA knew about this and that." But on the other hand, they could have just came out and said, "No."
Yeah. I don't, dude. It's just it's weird. It's a weird one.
It's weird. And I don't know. And even more so, they could have been like, hey, we found this newspaper. We don't have any proof that there's any meat to this story.
Yeah.
But they didn't.
Yeah.
They went about.
Yeah.
Like essentially,
if they looked into that story and there was nothing there, you would think that would be written in the report. We investigated it. Once we got to a certain point, we realized it was all bullshit.
Nothing
moving
substantial.
on.
Yeah,
you know,
that's where I
put this summary away. Moving on to the next one.
But
and then I also, I keep getting stuck. But like at first, you're reading the Weekly World News one, and you're like, okay, well, because the CIA had the document of their own, and your brain is like, well. Okay, maybe the Weekly World News, maybe there's fragments of the truth in here, right?
Yeah.
From the actual event. But the CIA basically reiterates the paper and is like, no. Yeah, they got it right.
It's legit.
They got it right.
It's legit. and the fact that they don't sugarcoat anything. They're like, They could have blacked out and omitted like it's from a 250-page KGB file, but they didn't.
Yeah,
it's still in there. Like
and they even brought up like pictures and all that. Like that's all there.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Imagine like how fucking cool would that be to be in contact with like a defective KGB and like he has one picture of the Stone Soldiers, and he's like,
"Oh my god, are the fucking UFO shot down?"
I just want to see the Stone Soldiers. If he was like, "God, look at this," and it's just like
and then we both disappear,
an old school camera angle from behind of like all these Stone soldiers with the UFO up front. Oh, geez, that would be great.
I don't know. I'd heard about it, and I imagine I probably like. The cover of the magazine shows a photo of a UFO shot down, but it's just like 1992 Photoshop. And I know I read it in the second grade when it came out. So I don't know if that's where I heard it or if I heard it in like my paranormal diggings. But once I started putting two and two together, I'm like, oh my God.
Well, I know it got brought up in Discord a couple times about the soldiers being turned to stone, but it was just that story. I at least to my knowledge, and I'm guilty of like skimming sometimes. I was unaware that there was an actual CIA document that tied it all together.
Which is so,
because there was
it's so crazy to me. Like where are my CIA documents?
X-Files
of Bigfoot and Santa Claus working together. Because now I have to question everything.
It's probably out there.
Everything the Weekly World News released. Is there CIA files on it? Because this was one of the more outlandish fucking stories they ran.
And then, on top of that, you pointed it out, that was also, the hat was tipped at it in the Men in Black.
Yeah.
Like you just said. Like, that was, like,
that's
we always hear
Hollywood,
about that.
Hollywood disclosure, baby.
Yes, we always hear about that there are those things in the movies that kind of, I guess it's like them telling you without actually telling you.
So it's like now I have to question every Weekly World News that has ever been released. Like dying planet sends Christmas message to Earth. AIDS victim caged for bizarre experiments. World War II bomber found on the moon. Like, are there files on this shit that haven't been disclosed yet?
At this point, wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, like
I know we say that all the time, but like, because this should be the most outlandish. Like, because that paper was written, you would have thought was written for enjoyment / entertainment,
right?
And now we're at a point where it's not exactly the case.
Yeah, like there's so many of them that makes you like, so if they turn these soldiers to stone, maybe space aliens really did meet with Newt Gingrich, Maybe the U.S. Navy really did capture a space alien. That's sure as fuck not that far off.
And that's actually an interesting thought, because it doesn't mean that every one of them stories isn't true. Because what if aspects of those stories are true? And then, of course, you have an overzealous person that wants to sprinkle, because you could, it's like the Men in Black, like we were just talking about. They mention it, but in a greater context. Like they, say I'm the CIA guy, and I'm like, Steve, the aliens are turning people to stone. Like, you need to get that out there. But you get it out there in a way that is more considered entertainment.
Yeah, it's easier to consume.
Yeah, you embellish the story just enough for people to read it. Like, almost like it was like the pre-programming that Hollywood does.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I don't like it, but I like
Well,
the way you put it.
You're right.
It does. Like it now what is fact and what is satire? Because the lines are blurred. Because like I said before, like 10 million Bigfoot sightings, it only takes one to prove that Bigfoots exist. You have 500 bullshit news articles put out there, but now all of a sudden we got one that's backed up by CIA documents. Now you got to question.
Changes the game.
You got to question whether NASA really took photos of ghosts in space.
That wouldn't be that surprising.
No.
Because one man's ghost is another cosmic celestial being.
Yeah. Bigfoot shot and killed in Montana. June 27th, 1995.
100% believe that.
That one probably, like, I probably sat there and thought, God damn, Bigfoot is dead. No. That probably fractured my fifth grade brain when I read that.
That story has probably happened about 15 times in Montana.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately, people have probably shot more than one Bigfoot.
Yeah, there's probably a season. UFO Downs fighter jet. That doesn't sound that far fetched, especially with some of the shit that's coming out now.
Independence Day.
And I don't know, man.
Wasn't there a state that like banned Bigfoot hunting?
Probably.
Pretty sure there was. I can't remember what it was.
Worldwide earthquakes free demons from hell.
Once again, wrong. Not that far fetched.
I don't know. It makes me. Oh, bro, if second grade Steve knew that there was a CIA file on this UFO crash,
your world would be way different now.
I don't know where I would be at this point.
I do.
Probably locked in a concrete room, like with the map and all the pins, and I'll just be like,
tinfoil over the windows, and 100%. You would be a nut job.
Yeah, worse off than I am now.
Well, I was gonna say you'd be a nut job, but in the best way.
I would be the lone gunman.
Pretty much.
Not in the Kennedy assassination, but in the X-Files.
Yeah, obviously. I picked up the reference.
So, that was my little change of pace there.
I liked it.
It's something. The Weekly World News has been the only world.
I like it.
This is awesome. The Weekly World News has been the world's only reliable news source since 1997.
Hell yeah.
So there is an archive. Look it up. Go find her out.
I love it.
September 8th, 1992, you can find this wonderful piece of news journalism, which at first sounds like bullshit, but then maybe it's not bullshit because what is even real anymore? That's where I'm at. Yeah, Satan's burial grounds found.
Well, also rainforest virus will kill the entire world.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's weird. Weird. That sounds familiar. Weird. So maybe that's true too. Maybe all of this is true. Maybe.
I hope.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know anything at this point. I thought I was kind of grounded, but
not anymore.
No. Airline pilot takes photographs of angels. The moon's on fire.
Get out of debt fast.
Yeah. Which is going to be funny because Elon Musk is crashing the damn rocket into the moon here shortly. You see that? The rogue rocket's going to smash into the moon.
I did hear it. Wasn't it on the dark side of the moon?
I don't know.
Something like that. Whatever, it don't matter.
Hopefully, whatever is on the moon that
Oh, they're gonna be pissed.
that got us in a way to where we decided never to fucking go back is going to get hit with a rocket, and then they just start launching rockets back at us.
They probably will.
That's the only way this story ends. And on that note, this story is ended. So,
Bye.
check us out at all our social medias. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. Come and hang out with us. You know the drill. I spout it off every time. So until you hear from us again, stay safe, stay weird, and for the only reliable news source since 1997, go check out some Weekly World News, because that is the real story.